When Fifine contacted me about sending me their K025 handheld microphone to review and keep, I was intrigued, not really knowing what to expect out of a wireless microphone for $30. But a few days later, it came in the mail and I was able to open it up. So, just how is a $30 wireless handheld microphone? When I first unboxed the microphone, I was pleasantly surprised at how nice the experience was. Inside the box, there was good documentation on setup as well as other info, and under that was the microphone itself, the receiver, and a rubber bumper that slides around the microphone to safely lay it down on a table. But going back to when I first picked up the microphone, something about it just felt right. The weight distribution when held at the neck felt just right, and the hard ABS plastic used for the majority of the body felt great as well. And at the top, the metal mesh and protective band on the top of the microphone removes any fears of the microphone diaphragm being easily harmed. Also doing a decent job at blocking some of the plosive sounds with a layer of foam inside. A little further down the microphone is a screen which shows the current selective frequency as well as two unnecessary logos. Unfortunately, the screen is recessed quite far back, making it nearly impossible to read at any sort of off angle. The screen is bright enough to be seen indoors, but in brightly lit environments and outside, it did become difficult to see. The on-off switch directly under the screen is marked with bumps to find it without looking, and is sufficiently difficult to switch, but sometimes a bit frustratingly so. And going all the way to the bottom of the mic has a rubber piece that is a nice touch for placing it on a table and for durability. One extra note I have is that the microphone may be too big to fit into smaller mic holders, as the bottom does not taper away much. But speaking of the bottom, the lower third of the microphone can be unscrewed to reveal the channel select button, which I left as default but can be switched between 20 different frequency channels, as well as the battery compartment, which takes two AA batteries and in my testing lasted 7.5 to 8 hours, with the screen flashing signaling a low battery being on for the last 2.5 or so. But moving on to the receiver. It's on par with the microphone, lasting nearly 8 hours on its two AAA batteries, but unfortunately the rest of the receiver, when compared to the microphone, is a bit mediocre. The on-off switch is fine, the antenna is nice, but in my range testing I had a hard time noticing a difference when it was extended. And my biggest criticism of the receiver is how it's bulky but lightweight, and how it is just plain annoying to have a big receiver sticking out of whatever device you're using as an amplifier or a recorder. I will give Fifine props for the ease of use and running off batteries, and with a built-in quarter-inch jack. But I also feel like they could have made it at least a bit smaller. But now, how do the microphone and the receiver work together? As advertised, I got just about 80 feet of range outside in a residential environment before I noticed a drop, with the mic becoming unusable at 100 feet and no longer connecting at 150 feet. Indoors, the microphone was surprisingly able to make it through two residential stories directly without issue, and maintained a signal wherever I went within one house, with a few drops starting to happen at the edges. Not a use case this microphone was designed for at all, but one that surprised me nonetheless. Bringing me to audio quality. As usual, throughout the entire video, I've been using the microphone to record myself, and this time I've done it all handheld. The microphone is nice, a little muffled, but with an overall warm sound, and with a good background noise rejection with the cardioid pickup pattern. This mic will have a hard time picking up your voice if you speak over the microphone or into the side, but the microphone also has a relatively quiet output, so the amount of hiss you will hear is largely dependent on the quality of your amp or recorder. The feedback protection is good, and I only started to get feedback when I was a foot away of my small amp at 70% volume, and the sounds of handling the microphone are still audible but could be far worse. Which all brings me to the conclusion of this video. If you're a gamer, and I only say this because that is primarily what my audience is, don't buy this microphone. Get a USB microphone and make your frag montages. But if you want a karaoke microphone for when you have friends over, or you're a speaker or a venue that needs a lot of microphones at a cheap cost, the receivers are a bit bulky, but there's no way you're going to beat the build and audio quality for anything close to this price point. That serves a double purpose of both being cheap to replace, but also durable enough to rarely have to resort to that. And as far as for what I will be keeping and using mine for, I see this as being a great on-the-street microphone for interviews and audio snippets where a cable is cumbersome and a lavalier just doesn't work. And as long as you don't try to plug this directly into your camera, it should work perfectly fine. So wow, Fifine, you guys created one damn compelling option for one damn compelling price.